The Making Millionaire Principle. So I want to tell you what's happening for Happy for Change in 2021, the Making Millionaire Principle. This is our roadmap for 2021 for Happy for a Change. So if you're interested in what's going on, here's what's going to be happening. The Making Millionaire Principle really is about using the power of social media in order to create change. Right? When you go onto YouTube, when you go onto Twitter, when you go on Facebook, you see all these people with tens of thousands of followers, maybe a million or millions of followers. Now, think about that. Think about someone on YouTube having, 3 million people on their subscribed to their channel. That's 3 million people they have a direct access to. They could put out the product, the service, they could put out a video, and they can get millions of views on their video, millions of purchases on their product. It's very powerful. Now, people like to complain about social media, like to complain about how bad social media is, how addictive it is, how bad it is. But one of the good things about social media, it really is like a double-edged sword. It really is like fire. It can cook you or it can do something great for you, is that we can mobilize millions of people to do an action, to do something small and have a huge impact on the world. So when there's millions of people who go and download Angry Birds or Candy Crush or some game in the App Store, what they're really doing is they're making them millionaires. They're making that company a $1 million company by giving them their attention and or their money. So I say we can use that principle in order to do things that we want to do. Now, with Happy for Change, one of the things I want to do coming up is... Okay, so we're going to apply the Making Millionaire Principle to specific projects. One of the projects I want to do is for debates. I don't know if you've noticed this. I don't know if you pay attention. I pay attention to the news. I pay attention to politics. I pay attention to what's happening in the United States especially. And I really feel like the communication's not happening. People are not really talking anymore. They're not incentivized to talk, right? They're incentivized to go to war, for conflict. They're incentivized to demonize. They're incentivized to take down the other side. But they're not incentivized to talk. So what if we created an environment, an opportunity for discussion to occur that was undeniable? So I want to use the power of Making Millionaires in order to raise, let's say, $1 million or millions of dollars, whatever the amount will take, in order to incentivize two opposing parties to come together to have a conversation. I'm not talking about the debates that you see, presidential debates where people are just yammering back and forth and cutting each other off. That's not the type of debate that I'm talking about. To me, that's not real communication. I mean, if you talk to your wife that way, if you talk to your husband, your lover, your friends that way, nothing would ever get done. I don't understand how they choose a president this way. I don't understand how we choose a prime minister this way. That type of debate, I think, is total garbage. What I like is watching Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan sits down with someone for 2-3 hours, has a long conversation with them, and they can go back and forth. And in a 3-hour conversation, you're getting a way better understanding of whatever a person's talking about, as well as an understanding of if the person who's speaking is full of crap, right? You can fool someone for 5 minutes. You can fool someone for 10 minutes, half an hour, maybe even an hour. But 3-hour conversation where you're being pressed back and forth, where you're having a real conversation, that to me is edifying. It's clarifying. So I want to create an opportunity where I want to get people, whether it's AOC and Ben Shapiro coming together and to talk things out, and not debating like trying to slam each other, but literally talking about the topics and coming to some type of understanding, or at least revealing where the disagreement lies. I think that would be very powerful. So I want to create a type of debate style get together where we raise an amount of money and we challenge two people or a group of people to come together to have a conversation. Let's say two people come together to have a conversation about a specific topic. And when they come, each person gets half of this pool, right? So can you imagine you say, hey, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ben Shapiro, you guys come together and you'll each get $3 million for your own cause or for your own self, who are, I don't know what's best. Give it to them, give it to some, I think to them is really important. You come together and you have a conversation, right? And the person might say, oh, I don't want to talk to Ben Shapiro. Oh, I don't want to talk to Alexandria Cortez. But I mean, how are you going to say no to an honest conversation when $3 million is on the line, right? You can donate that to charity if you want to. You can't afford, you're not interested in giving $3 million to charity, right? Think about that. Get together a pool of cash that will then incentivize people to come together and have conversations. So whether you're interested in communism or socialism or capitalism, let's have that conversation out. Whether you think Medicare for all or everybody for themselves, you get together and talk that out. Whatever policies, whatever things that people want to do in our society, communication is key. So getting people together, instead of demonizing each other, you just hash out what you're talking about. I don't know if you're like me, but I've always wondered when Nancy Pelosi, when these politicians get behind closed doors and they're talking with the opposing side, when they're trying to make a deal, what are those conversations like? What do they talk about? Like when Chuck Schumer calls Donald Trump, like what's going on? What are they saying? How's that conversation going? Right? Now, I know when it comes to Donald Trump, it's a little polarizing. I don't even think people even call that guy to talk to him. But when it comes to the other adversaries, the other opponents, what's going on? You see, a person running as a liberal and a person running as a conservative, and they get together, how would they hash out their conversation? What would that conversation be like? What could we learn from that? So I want to incentivize that type of conversation. What do you think? Right? I don't have a name for it right now. It's a project that's in development. But I want to create a type of debate style where you really hear long form interactions between two people as opposed to just hearing sound clips where they're trying to just get a headline in the newspaper. What do you think about that? All right. Second project for with the Making Millionaire Principle is something right now I'm calling alternative. Look, a lot of people complain about YouTube, they complain about Twitter, they complain about Facebook, they complain about a mall or a product or service, something out there that people are using that people complain about. Now, one of the elements that causes companies to do right by their clients is competition, right? If you have competition in whatever field, then whoever's competing in that field is going to have to be really in tune with what the client wants in order to succeed. Okay, think about this. There is no other YouTube out there. There's no other YouTube out there. There's no other Twitter out there. There's no other Facebook out there, right? These platforms are basically monopolies. Now, they're monopolies because they serve the consumer, but they're monopolies nonetheless. And when people have beefs with it, they're like, oh, well, just don't go on YouTube. Just don't go on Facebook. Just go on Twitter. Yeah, but where else am I going to go, right? Twitter has become a crucial thing. The news uses Twitter in order to quote the news. YouTube is a crucial thing. You can make businesses. You can make a business on there. You can use it. And when you're worried about being deplatformed, when you're worried about being canceled, when you're worried about getting your channel taken down, it's kind of hard to live in that environment. And then these tech companies, these big tech companies, they really have control over the population, which I absolutely hate. What if there was a competitor to YouTube? What if there was a competitor to Facebook, right? Then people can go, well, if YouTube is doing something shady here that I don't like, if Facebook is doing something shady that I don't like, Twitter is doing something I don't like, I can just go to another platform, right? But there is no other platform. Now, let's say somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I want to create an alternative to YouTube. You'd be like, oh my God, you're going to have it's going to be a long road for you to walk, right? It's going to be a steep hill for you to climb. How are you going to compete against YouTube? So we need to find a way to make it easier for people to compete, easier for entrepreneurs to create alternatives to these platforms. And I think one of the ways to do that is to establish the market beforehand. Can you imagine if there's a list online, a group of people who've signed up and they say, look, we are interested in an alternative to YouTube. All right. Before the entrepreneur even gets started, we just have a group of people. Can you imagine if there are 10 million people who said, look, we want an alternative to YouTube and we're willing to pay for it. Right? So they sign up to this thing. Maybe they have to put some dollars down just to show how serious they are. And they create this list. It's like a petition, but it's a petition for an alternative. And what that petition would tell the world is, look, if you're an entrepreneur out there and you create a real alternative to YouTube, here's 10 million of us and we're going to subscribe to you first day, the day of. How much easier would it be to create an alternative to these platforms? Right? When the entrepreneur, when they go to get funding, when they go to develop their idea, when they go to the bank, they can go, look, there are 10 million people who already claim that they want this product. I don't have to do the market research. The market research is done. Here they are, these people. I don't have to pay for marketing. I don't have to pay for this or that. I can just create my project and my idea and present it to this community of people, to this network of people who've already proclaimed that they want this alternative. Think about that. Think about that for a second. All the beef that you might have with Twitter, Facebook, or any of these platforms, or a product or a service, whether it's like an alternative to Amazon or to Walmart, like whoever it is. If I know before I even start that there is 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million people who are willing to try my product, to dive into it the day I launch it, I think it's going to be a lot easier to get those competitors, those alternatives out there in the world. That's the power of Making Millionaire, the Making Millionaire principle. When we declare ourselves preemptively, then we inform the world as to what we value, and then that world can present that to us. So we can create alternatives, right? Alternatives to these different platforms. But what we have to do is showcase ourselves to let it be known that we're here and that we're interested. You know, there are people who want to create these alternatives to these products, but they think, how am I going to convince X number of people in order to jump on board? How am I going to convince 1 million people to get on board? It's one thing to create the platform. It's another thing in order to get the people there. Everybody's already on YouTube. But if the sentiment, dissatisfaction is evident and shown, that inspires the entrepreneur to try and to go out there and to create something for us. So I want to have Happy for Change wants alternatives, because competition is the way you keep people honest, and the way you keep them creative and hungry for their client. Look, if there is a really good alternative to Apple, well, then Apple would have to really cater to its client in order to entice them away from this other product and to keep them there. But when Apple is the only thing that's good, I'm not saying Apple's the only thing that's good, but it's perceived as this really sweet spot in the market. Well, then it's harder to compete. You get it. All right. Science. Is anybody else out there really upset with scientists? I've been listening to a lot about, aliens and different things. And over the years, I've just noticed that there's a lot of politics in science. There's a lot of politics in science. Scientists, they don't just go out. I'm speaking generally here. They don't just go out and investigate just anything that their heart desires. They go out to investigate what they can get funding to investigate, right? If there's no funding, if there's no interest, if they're not going to get money, then they're not going to investigate this thing, right? So I say we use the Making Millionaire principle for scientists. We fund scientists. We say, look, I want to know if aliens exist. And I want people to investigate this who are not going to be like, it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, it's just wacky nonsense. No. Okay, I don't care if it's wacky nonsense. We'll give you $5 million in order to go investigate this stuff and do it well and do it publicly so we can all see this. And really, whatever conclusion you come to, you're going to show us in great detail how you came to this conclusion so that we can all see that politics didn't play into it, that your bias didn't play into it, that stigma didn't play into it. I want science to investigate all kinds of things, all right? Not just aliens. Mostly aliens, but not just aliens. I want scientists to go ahead and investigate things, but they're human beings, and they're affected by incentives, and they have to get funding from government, they have to get funding from corporations, and they need money in order to do these things. So if there's a public fund to incentivize, to really tell people, look, if you're a scientist and you can investigate this is what we want to investigate, and here's the money, you're going to get funding in order to get this done. Then we can start being more direct with what gets funded and what gets explored. And I don't care if they want to explore reincarnation or being clairvoyant to ESP, remote viewing. I don't care what it is, okay? Ghosts, okay? I don't care what it is. Go ahead and investigate it, because we got to get these questions off the table, folks. I'm almost 37 years old. My whole goddamn life, people were wondering if aliens exist or if they're ghosts. Why can't we put this to rest? All the scientists are sitting there going, everybody's so stupid. They just don't understand what we already know. No, prove it and show it to me so that it's so obvious. When we get these questions off the table, when we release this from our consciousness, then we can focus on other things. Or we find out that ghosts and aliens do exist, and holy crap, shouldn't we know that too? Right? Making Millionaires wants to fund scientists, to fund projects for investigation, and for it to be public, for it to be maybe even recorded and entertaining, Neil deGrasse Tyson style, Cosmo style, where we can see what's going on, we can be invested in the process, and where the scientist doesn't care what the outcome is, right? They're getting millions of dollars in order to get this done. They're happy to do this research, maybe they even want to, but they couldn't find the funds in order to do it. I say, make that happen. Joanne says, aliens? Joanne, aliens could exist, all right? It could exist. Do some research, Google it, okay? There's a documentary called The Phenomenon. It's the most recent alien documentary that I know of, and it's pretty good. Look, I don't believe that aliens exist, and I don't want aliens to exist, but there's a lot of conversation about aliens. Governments are releasing documents about UFOs. I say we put it to rest, and I'm tired of people looking at scientists and listening to them in interviews of how the disdain or the what's the word I'm looking for? The lack of respect they have for the people who might believe these things, okay? Look, it might be flat earthers, all right? Prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Earth isn't flat. Grab some flat earthers and bring them up into space. How much would that cost? I don't know. Elon Musk is sending rockets into space. Let's send some of these flat earthers up there so we can put an end to this conversation. Yes, aliens, Joanne. Yes, aliens. Yes. I want to know if for sure if they're there or if they're not, or if all the things that we're seeing, all the sightings and all the stories are totally fake. Okay, I want to know. And I'm not satisfied with what science has done. All right. I talked about that way longer than I expected. I guess I'm more interested than I thought. And then the last project is Black Money Matters. And I've talked about this in previous showings, in previous streams. Black Money Matters. This is my idea to help the Black community in North America. In the world, ultimately, but in North America right now. And we're going to be talking about that in just a moment. If you really like Bad Guru Nightly, thank you so much for watching. We'll be on again. Make sure to subscribe over on Facebook and YouTube so that you never miss another episode. Cheers.
Cheers! Oh.